Give us a little bit about your background. You are a Chaldean, am I saying that word correctly?
Yes.
A Catholic priest. So there's the Roman Catholic Church, then there's obviously other streams of the church. And the Chaldean Catholic Church, it is believed through church history that the Apostle Thomas and one of the other possibly 72 apostles planted churches all around the Mesopotamia, which is like modern day Iraq.
Exactly.
And that, from my understanding, there are Indian folks who believe that the Apostle Thomas went all the way to India, and that's how you see early churches there. So give us a little bit about the background of kind of where you come from, the difference between you guys and the Roman Catholic Church, and then I want to get into more of your story as well.
Yeah. So Jesus told the apostles, after he had told them to, at the beginning of the ministry, he told them, go only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That was at the beginning. And he was training them, and he was having them walk with him and watch and learn from him. And then at the end, in Matthew 28, he told them, go preach the gospel to all nations, to the whole creation. So the neighboring biggest nation, besides the Roman Empire, was the Parthian Empire, which Mesopotamia was a big part of that. So they went there, right? That's the next nation. Jesus said, go to all the nations. And so they were so courageous. They learned new languages. And Thomas was the apostle that went to the Parthian Empire. He went to the Mesopotamia region first, and then he ended up in India. And he went with two of the other disciples, which were probably part of the 72, Ade and Mari. Ade might be the same person as St. Jude Thaddeus, actually.
Yeah.
So they went to that region and they preached the gospel. There's a story of Mari, the one of the 72. He went, and there was a king there, King Abgar, and he had asked Jesus to come, but Jesus sent, this is a tradition, right?
Sure.
Jesus sent Mari, and so the tradition goes that this king, Mesopotamian king, asked Mari about Jesus, and Mari told him, I'll tell you about Jesus, but I want to tell you in a public place. So they went to a public square, and then he started to preach about Jesus, and then many people started to convert at that time. And so the church became established at that time, and actually the oldest physical church building is in a region called Koche, which is in the Mesopotamia region. And it was there, actually, the oldest church building. The word Koche means slums, basically. And so it was just a very poor neighborhood, but they built a church there. And so the Chaldean people, who are some of the original inhabitants of the region of Mesopotamia, Aramaic speaking, many of them converted to Christianity. And so the church started at that time. And now the Chaldean church, yes, we call it the Chaldean church, but you're right to say that it is part of the Roman Catholic Church. So we are still under the authority of the Pope. We do have our own patriarch, who is the head of our church, but still under the authority of the Pope, who we see as the successor of St. Peter. And there are 23 Eastern Rite Catholic churches, like the Chaldean Church. There's also Armenian Catholic Church too. 23 of them. And basically, they keep their traditions and their heritage and their language and their liturgies while also being in unity with the Catholic Church. So it's, in other words, it's like a different flavor of Catholicism. It's the same faith, but a different way that we worship and pray and live our faith.
Yeah. It's interesting. A bunch of things come to me. The reference to Thaddeus, it's also believed that Thaddeus went to Armenia. And my friend Arthur went to, I believe this is now Turkey technically, but there's a grave site we talked about of him going to a disciple of Thaddeus in historic Armenia.
Wow.
And so you have this interesting overlap, right, of the... After the incredible success of our Bless God prayer journal, many of you guys began to ask for something that had a planner. And so we combined our Bless God prayer journal with a brand new leadership planner that jam-packs the same things from our prayer journal with a planner, goal setting, leadership meeting, and notes. With the next pages, you can see different sections right along here of this leadership planner, where you can start out with actionable goals, 12 months of calendar, our original prayer journal prompts, our leadership journal with the proven problem solution framework, and of course, just free write notes. This leadership planner is based off of Matthew 25:14-30, which of course is the parable of the talents. The vision of the planner is to help you make the most of your time, talent, and treasure. Head over to blessgod.shop and get yours today. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace. The spreading of Christianity, which I actually think is a great apologetic for the resurrection of Jesus. Like, why would all these guys that weren't the most educated and weren't the most eloquent go and completely revolutionize the world? And I think sometimes, unfortunately, within Protestant circles, it kind of just ends with like an Acts, right?
Yeah.
But like when you look at church tradition, like it keeps going and it keeps spreading, and it goes not just to Rome in the West, but it goes to the East, and it expands all over the world. So I love that. Yeah, that's super interesting. So you mentioned you guys are in unity with Rome, but you have your own patriarchs.
Yes.
And that there's distinctions within your own traditions. I've read that there's a lot of overlap with Jewish Christians or the early Jewish Christians that kind of overlap with the Chaldeans. And so there's almost like a Jewish flavor to what you guys do?
Yeah, I mean, for example, traditionally in our churches, we used to have a veil covering the altar area to symbolize, the veil of the temple and God allowing us to enter into his presence. And just the, Aramaic speaking aspect of that region. I mean, there's, and the fact that Abraham is from Ur of the Chaldeans, right? So he was originally from that region. And yeah, they're just the faith, right? The covenantal theology of Judaism and of the Old Testament, really is a big part of our theology and of our understanding of who God is.
Very cool. So tell me a bit about your background, and if you can kind of tie in some of the apparently there's a lot of beef between the Assyrians and the Chaldeans and what you label yourself and what you don't label yourself. I went down that rabbit hole.
Sure.
So kind of tell me your story and then kind of tie it into the macro of like what is the difference with these things?
Yeah. So I guess I'll start with that. Last week or the week before, the Chaldean bishop, my bishop, who's the bishop of the western part of the United States. His name is Bishop Emmanuel Shalita, and he's very supportive of my ministry, social media ministry, online ministry. And so we went with him and a couple other priests. We went to, there's one Assyrian church in San Diego. It's in Spring Valley, Rabban Hormuz Church. And the Assyrian patriarch who lives in Iraq was visiting. His name is Mar Awa. Very, very good man who I've spoken to since he was a bishop. We went and we prayed with them. We joined them for their liturgy, and we had dinner with them after. It was a very beautiful experience. Yes, there are differences in the church. I mean, we're basically the same people from the same region. We speak the same language, different dialects. Different churches now. We were united. It was called the Church of the East.
Yes.
And I hope, and they were even saying there at the event we were at, we hope that one day we will be united again. I mean, we hope that all Christians will be united in the way that they worship and that they follow Jesus. But these two churches are sister churches, and they're so close to each other. So from Iraq, right, people from the Chaldean and Assyrian church, they moved out of Iraq due to persecutions, obviously. And so beginning in the early 1900s, a lot of people were leaving Iraq. My grandparents and my parents came around the 70s, 80s here because of the persecution that they faced. My grandpa actually used to work in Saddam Hussein's government.
Oh.
Yeah. And so he kind of foresaw the chaos that would ensue over there in the region, and they decided to just leave because a lot of our family had come to America. In Michigan, there's a lot of Chaldeans. And here, I'm really glad that they chose San Diego and not Michigan. Arizona, too, there's a lot of Chaldeans over there. I have some family there. So they came to San Diego, and people started to follow each other. You know how the Middle Eastern culture is. They like to stick together, especially being in a Western country now. And so they stuck together. And just like it was back home in Iraq, there's villages in northern Iraq, like my family's from a village called Tel Kepe. The village is basically built around the church. There's the churches at the center of the village. I actually had the opportunity to go there for the first time. I was born here. So I went there for the first time in 2019. It was such a beautiful, amazing thing to see villages where it's only Chaldean Catholics are there, and the community is around the church, and the church is not only a worship place, but it's a community center. It's such a beautiful thing to see. So that's kind of what happened out here. The church in Iraq, like the patriarch and the bishops, would care about the people here, and so they would send clergy here to minister to our people, and so that happened, and the church was established out here. Now we have 4 Chaldean Catholic churches, and I grew up in a very Catholic family. My dad is an ordained deacon in the church, and from that upbringing, I was inspired to become a priest.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for checking out the video. Comment down below and let me know what you think. And be sure to check out this video that YouTube is recommending just for you. Let me know if they nailed it. All right? I'll see you over there. Peace.